So my thinking in setting up the sequence of speakers in this way, that Tony is followed by Russell Korus, is that Tony appears to me to be working at a very high level of something that's already reasonably well financed and involves a group of people, whereas Russell is a guy who got into this thing on his own, a guy who started trading on his own and discovered that it wasn't that easy to do. One thing led to another. You can tell us what you did next. This is Russell Korus.
Thank you so much, Moses. Thank you very much. Do you want to know just how prevalent digital currencies are already today? Little old ladies in China are using them. So my friend Dawn was just traveling through China, and while she was in Beijing, she was walking down the street, and she saw an old lady selling fruit by the side of the road. She went up, she picked out some fruit, went to hand over some money, and the old lady shakes her head and says, "No cash." Dawn says, "What do you mean no cash? How am I supposed to pay?" The lady holds up her phone, says, "Only we pay or Alipay." Now, when Dawn first told me that story, I couldn't believe it. And then I found this. Now, these are cashless transactions in China, which in 2015 already totaled $1.5 trillion. That tripled in 2016, it tripled again in 2017, and is projected to triple again by 2021. And the most amazing thing about this entire $15 trillion economy is that there's not a single bank involved anywhere in the entire process. So how did this happen? Well, it happened because every great technology has its moment in the sun. Its mass adoption moment, where it goes from being obscure and in the fringes to something that's valuable and just a part of what we do every day. And I'm here to tell you that cryptocurrencies are at that exact moment right now. So over the next few minutes, I want to talk about three things: where we came from and how we got here, why trust is so important to all of this, and what it's going to take to propel cryptocurrencies to the next level. In 1993, Tim Berners-Lee released a piece of code into the public domain that became the World Wide Web and changed everything. I graduated from Queen's University in 1994, and I got into IT just as Windows 95 and the first Netscape Navigator were released. And for the internet, this was its mass adoption moment, because it represented, for the very first time, an easy way for people to get online. But even as far as 1998, nobody could envision things like Uber and Airbnb and the ubiquity of smartphones. So paradigm shifts can happen very quickly. Similarly, cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and Ethereum are already transforming the way banks and financial markets operate. They're disrupting supply chain and healthcare and digital identity and virtually every other industry. Cryptocurrencies and blockchain will have as much influence in the world over the next 20 years as the internet has had over the last 20. Now, if you would have invested $1,000 into Bitcoin back in 2010, you would have had just under $200 million at Christmas. And although it's true that you would have lost over $100 million since the start of the year, you'd still be up about $70 million on your $1,000 investment. Now, I hear Warren Buffett and others call Bitcoin a bubble, but I look at this chart and I'm reminded of a quote, which is, "A bubble is simply any rising asset that you have no position in." So what led to all this? Well, in 2008, world equity markets were cut in half. More than $30 trillion of value was lost, and this led to a significant erosion in public trust. Today, only a very small percentage of people still have faith in government. And it's the same with banks and other financial institutions. The crash in '08 was acidic to public trust. However, the crash did produce a profound event. Satoshi Nakamoto, whoever he, she, or they may be, and isn't it amazing that to this day, we still do not know the true identity of the creator of Bitcoin. But Satoshi Nakamoto, much like Tim Berners-Lee before him, released a piece of code into the public domain that became the Bitcoin blockchain and once again changed everything. And it all comes down to trust. I mean, think about this. You can take Bitcoin and send it over the internet to a complete stranger halfway around the world, directly, peer-to-peer, without a third party to validate, and both of you can have complete trust in the validity of the transaction. In fact, Bitcoin transactions are considered trustless because the concept of trust doesn't even enter into the equation. You cannot claim to have sent it if you didn't. The other party cannot claim to have not received it if they did, because both of you can go onto the blockchain directly and view the confirmed transaction for yourself. So Bitcoin is trustless. It's also decentralized, which means it's outside the control of any central bank or government or entity or organization. It also writes all of its transactions to a public ledger, visible by anyone at any time. And its record-keeping is also immutable, making it free from fraud, corruption, manipulation, or even honest mistake. And it's these qualities, the trustlessness, the decentralization, the publicly available ledger, and the immutability that have really captured people's imagination and why Bitcoin is the furthest thing from a bubble. So at this point, you're probably thinking, wow, that guy up on stage is really persuasive. I got to get me some Bitcoin. Well, unfortunately, there's a problem. And the problem is that the current cryptocurrency exchange industry is lagging very far behind when it comes to things like usability, intuitiveness, support, security, and a whole range of other user experience issues. The current situation is such that only the most technically savvy and determined individuals will ever make it all the way through the end. Most people will simply give up at some point along the way, leaving Bitcoin permanently in the fringes. At this time, less than 2% of investors own any cryptocurrency, yet over 50% own stock. And the only way to grow that market and increase crypto ownership levels is to make it easier for people to go online and buy, sell, and trade cryptocurrencies. That is the reason why my partner and I created Easy Exchange. Our vision is crypto for all. I mean, look, if I believe, as I do, that cryptocurrencies are going to change the world, then I want to do everything I possibly can to help facilitate mass adoption. Cryptocurrencies are incredibly forward-thinking, and they need to be acquired more easily. The only way for them to ever reach their full transformative potential in society is if we make it easier for people to acquire them. That's the whole vision around Easy Exchange. In 3 years, every single person in this room is going to own and use cryptocurrencies. Every one of these technologies behind me needed a mass adoption moment to go from obscure to mainstream. And with the help of Easy Exchange, I believe cryptocurrency's moment is upon us. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so Tony says don't, and Russell says do.
I respectfully disagree with
everybody's
Tony.
talking about trust.
Yes.
And in one sense, this whole thing got started because, as I explained, people didn't trust governments. Mass inflation has destroyed many lives, and inept and corrupt governments are very famous. Won't take this picture.
Right, 1 sec. Oh, that's perfect. Just one more. Keep your eyes open. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Russell.
Thank you. Really appreciate it, Moses. Thank you.
So-
Thank you very much.